Hi, everybody, and good afternoon. I'm Aley from Heart and Soul Connected, and I'm pleased to have Andre with me from Proactive Astrology. Welcome,
Hi, everyone.
Andre. Thank you for being here. Yeah,
Thank you for
been a
having me.
couple of years, I think, since we had a chat. Actually, about 2022. I remember having you work on a chart and talk about some of the progressions for me. And we were opening a business, which we just had to close because my husband's ill. So
Oh,
total
sorry to hear that.
different, yeah, totally different scenario at this point. But everything that you said pretty much was very valuable information. So yeah. So
Well,
I saw you with Linda and Mel the other day, and I said, oh, I would love to ask you some questions. And so today, that's what I'm going to hope to do. Andre is, I don't know, you're the go-to guy for for Trump charts and Biden charts, and so you really follow this stuff and offer us a very easy but well done explanation of some of the things we're seeing or that are coming up in the future. So I'm just real glad to have you with me today. And he's a fellow Seattleite. So there you go.
yes, it's true. Yeah, we're both here
Yeah,
experiencing the greenness and the rain.
that's right.
Yes,
The greenness and the rain. Yep,
it's true.
absolutely. So, Mary, I don't know if I can answer your question, but she's wondering when are we going to no longer talk about him?
That to me, that's a little hard to say because this thing that he's in could easily extend into next year and beyond. It's just that probably the best marker would be the election
Right.
because I would consider, I think his odds of winning the election are near zero. They're very low based on his
Yeah.
chart and
Hmm.
based on everything we're all seeing and so forth.
Right.
But, and you see this in his chart too, that a lot of the intense pressure continues to next year, the year after that. This is not unusual in legal matters. It can take quite a while. And there's also the
Yeah.
fact that uh, he's really teetering on the health front. There are some really threatening angles
I agree.
to his health,
Yeah.
in which case, I don't
Hmm.
know, then it can totally throw it into another dimension. That could be,
Yeah. Yeah.
who knows around
Yep.
that.
I'm with you on that one. I know that, well, he still has other trials to go to, provided he's still around. But I feel like even if he leaves the planet, and I don't wish that on anyone, but if he does, we're still going to be talking about him. There's still going to be things coming out, ramifications of things that he's done. And there was something that was said last night by Professor Tim Snyder of Yale University. He was on with Lawrence O'Donnell, and he was talking about the idea that um, the um, the discussion of whether or not he is immune from anything that he's done should never have even been introduced in our world. I mean, it's like nobody else has ever asked for it. Nobody else has ever, you know, done anything that required it. Well, Nixon maybe, but even with him, he didn't. He. I like the fact he quietly went away, so to speak. But I agreed with him so much. It's like, why did the Supreme Court do this? And of course, that's a whole other reading with a whole bunch of other different ramifications. But I'm wondering if um, in the United States chart, so not necessarily in Trump's chart, we know that there are some things that are going on with the Pluto, I believe, that happened during the Revolutionary War and the Civil War. Would that be right? Similar things?
Well, I don't know about the Pluto. Pluto is on its return. So Pluto has
Right.
that 250-year orbit. Back in those
Oh,
times,
okay.
specifically the Civil War. So there are
Okay.
echoes of the Civil War partly,
Yeah.
and the
Yep.
Second World War. Both times were very topsy turvy for
Yeah.
the world and for the U.S. And in the US,
Right.
the biggest problem is the Civil War echoes are the racial divide, which was happening then too. And now we're seeing another version of that. And that's like an umbrella above Trump. Trump is like the symptom of the time. He's the conduit for that insanity, which back in the Civil War were the people in the South. They wanted to create an empire of slavery, and then they were stopped. So we're back there again. And if it weren't Trump, it would be some other thing. But it's why it's so.
It would be somebody else. Sure.
Tense and divided, and so that's why we're the country's in this jam right now. And notice too that the Second World War echoes. There's a lot of this similar trouble in other parts of the world. A lot of this division in Israel and Germany, different places where the country is really at a standstill because half the country wants to go one way and half the country wants to go the other way, and they're very, disagreeable rather than saying, well, next time we'll win. No, there's this, this is super important and we must win at all costs, and that's where we are. Yeah, so
we are there. I'm a little concerned about Joe Biden's chart with regard to the Israeli Gaza issue. Does it show? Does anything show? I don't even know what house that would be in. Would it be under the guise of the 12th house? Would it be the 12th house? Or
no, well, Biden has a lot of 12th house planets, and he has pressures to that. Yes, it's true. But the one that is dominant is actually what I call the co-ruler of the 12th, because Pluto co-rules Scorpio, his 12th sign. And Pluto is in is resident in the 9th, which is the international house. And you could see this back in 2021, that Pluto was getting stressed. And that's why the Afghanistan thing went so badly for him when he left, even though it wasn't his fault. And now there is pressure. What's happening is the Pluto itself is in a tricky transit, and it's basically it's squaring his moon. So this is not going to go completely away, I don't think. But I have confidence that it'll go away enough that it's not going to threaten his election.
It's not going to affect it. No. Okay, because
well,
I was concerned about the youth vote. It will affect them. I'm sorry.
Oh, it'll affect it some. There's no question that this is the thing that the current forces we're in. You notice that they're making a race that shouldn't be close, much closer than it needs to be, because of things like that, where you get people going to the polls and the primaries, and they're putting in, instead of voting for Biden, they say absent, or they say present, or whatever. It's a protest vote. So there's some of that. I don't think it's enough, but it's enough to make you nervous. Yeah.
Sure.
For sure.
Sure.
Yeah.
And today I just happened to catch that apparently some of the protesters, I don't know if it was at Columbia or one of the other colleges, but they've broken into the administrative building. It looks just like January 6th, what they're doing. It's very,
it's not,
and, no, not at all.
No.
And, a lot of these young people were on the verge of graduating from college, like in 2 weeks, and they have just been suspended from the colleges that they were going to graduate from. So, it has to affect them. And Trump wouldn't probably, of course, he would have a worse time dealing with this than Biden is, but he has such a tight thing with Israel, with the fact that he's big in the Middle East, on Jared and all of the other things that were Trumpian at that time. Yeah. So he can't have the same, he wouldn't be doing any better, of course, but he could say he would. Yeah.
No, it would be worse because Trump is on record. Trump has said right on camera, he said, Israel needs to finish the job. This means he wants them to be even more aggressive. So Trump
eradicated.
That's the whole point, is that if you're a young person, you should protest because what is happening is not good. I mean, Israel's approach is crazy. It's just way over the top in terms of retribution. It's far too much, and it needs to be stopped. There's no question about that. But if you compare Biden and Trump, you may not like Biden, but he's much better than Trump for this because Biden is trying. Biden is genuinely trying
Yes,
to stop the carnage. But think of
yeah,
Biden's position. Half the country in the US thinks back Israel to the hilt, and the other half says don't back them at all. So he's stuck in the middle.
right.
That's politics. It's really,
It
really
is.
hard, right? But at least he's
It is
trying. If it were
politics.
Trump,
Yeah,
he'd say,
he is.
take it, it's yours. So
Mhm.
that's the truth.
In the meantime, I saw yesterday that Biden has ordered some nuclear weapon aircraft that is supposed to take care of any threats from Russia, let's say. Because yesterday, I believe it was Sergei Lavrov said that they were planning on some kind of and they've been saying it a while now, a nuclear attack.
No. Well, I mean, a nuclear attack,
Anything in the, no,
to me,
no.
that
Okay.
kind of talk, nuclear attack is like
Yeah.
two people in the same room, both pointing AR-15s at each other. What do? You can't. If
Right.
you shoot, you
What do
die.
you do?
So you can't because
Right.
you can say publicly, okay, I'm going to put in some airplanes with nuclear, this and that. A single submarine that a U.S. has or Russia could destroy the other country. So there's no need to even say that. It's just not a war you can
Right.
win. If you
Yeah.
start one of those conflicts,
That's very
you
true.
doom yourself. So
Uh-huh.
it's like
No,
that.
I agree with you 100%. I'm just wondering if since the rhetoric probably was ramped up, he decided to just say something like that would show that he's aware
Yes,
of
that's what I
what they're
think.
saying.
It's
Yeah. Yeah.
right,
Yeah. That's
politics.
good.
Yeah. Mhm.
Talk to me a little, if you can, about Trump's is it the second house family? Is family the second house? Or is that the fourth house? I can't remember.
Fourth house.
No?
Fourth.
Fourth
Fourth.
house.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So
Eric's
your
there with
question
him
is
today.
Eric,
Well,
yeah, well,
yeah, I know. He's the leftover boy. I'm just wondering if you see anything about his chart that shows the alienation of the family at all coming up, his progress chart.
it's in the the transits. Okay, so the fourth is Scorpio in his chart. So then the
Okay.
fourth is primary ruler is Mars. And right
All
now,
right. Yeah.
at the moment, the Uranus cycle is moving very soon in the next 2-3 months, is directly square that Mars. So once it's in the region, though, you can already see that it alienates. Because Uranus is a separation type of energy. People experience it all the time as relationships that don't work out, or even wanting to be more alone and so forth. So having that particular planet, it's got a huge orbit. It takes forever to go around. So
Yeah.
if it's squaring the Lord of the Fourth, then it's not surprising that he would be isolated from his family and even from his base, because as much as his base is really with him being in court and being involved in all this is not good for that either. So it
Right.
hurts him in that way. So yeah, it's explained by the transits for sure.
That's wonderful. I mean, that not wonderful, but that you can explain it that way. They were saying last night on Maddow that, he has maybe he had 20 people show up one of the times he went, another 20 or 50 or whatever. And she said yesterday or last week, I guess it was one guy named Gary that was standing outside.
I saw that. Yeah. 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 Rachel was on fire. Rachel was really on fire yesterday because I thought that
She was.
this is where people should get encouraged when you see the unbelievable low quality of the this is like the idea that birds of a feather flock together. Trump as a leader attracts all these cranks and weirdos and people that are not good political operatives. So then you see them do things that, they live in the wrong state, they run here but live there. Or Kristi Noem, she says, the dog was having a lot of fun, but so I had to shoot it. Things where you think, honestly, like, what career are you in? Yeah. This is politics. Don't say that.
Really? They said she probably said it because she thought it was a strong thing to do. Like, I'm a woman and I can still shoot my dog, I agree with you. I love, that's why I so much don't ever want to miss Rachel's show. And I'm reading her book right now about about the fascist state, beforehand. But when she was telling us all about those people that live in this state, but they're
Mhm.
wanting to. Jeez. And nobody else highlights that. You're absolutely right. I haven't seen that anywhere else.
Well,
We have heard Josh Hawley does that. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, and that shows up when you go to campaign. Your opponent will tell the voters, "This guy doesn't even live here. Here is other problems." That's what happened to Mehmet Oz. When he ran in Pennsylvania, he
Right.
wasn't from Pennsylvania, so the opponent kept throwing it in there. So you're putting
Yeah.
candidates that are compromised, that are not solid, good people. So then you
Yeah.
increase your odds of losing. That's just how it
Sure.
works. Yeah.
Well, we've all been saying at some point that this party has to disintegrate, and we see it. But do you think there'll be a big wallop, or is this going to just still take a lot of time, depending on the transits of the cycles?
Well, I mean, look, for obvious reasons, you can see that the pattern going into next year is critical because we have an election this year. So that's on the basic
Right. Right.
here and now plane. But
Uh-huh.
the next year is the start of the Saturn Neptune conjunction in Aries. And those types of conjunctions are huge. To give you an example, and they affect Russia a lot too. Russia had
Okay.
Saturn Neptune. This was something Andre Barbeau had picked up on, this great French astrologer. He had pinned it, Saturn Neptune, to Russia, and the revolution in 1917 was a Saturn Neptune conjunction, and so was the
Oh,
late 80s when Saturn and Neptune conjoined. They fell apart due to lack of resources, and we're having another one now. And that's one of the
yeah.
reasons that I've been so pessimistic about Putin's chances, optimistic about it changing against him because he's such a thug. He's a Libra with a
Right.
lot of planets in Libra. So the Aries energy is not helpful to him. It's on the other side opposing him. So
It is. Yeah.
2025, 2026, they're years when we'll see pretty big changes. Plus, Pluto will be in Aquarius permanently as of the end of the year. It has one little stint left in
Right.
Capricorn. So then we enter fully the new, the AI era and all that. And I know that people are scared about that, but we've had technological advances before and people were scared then too. And, we have to trust
That's
that
very true, Andre.
things will
Yeah.
will will
Yeah.
be okay.
Even
Yeah.
television. Oh, television was going to be the end of the young people and rock and roll music. And yeah, I agree. Yeah, I get
Right.
you.
Exactly. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Mhm.
that is fascinating. I did not. So that's basically when Reagan told Mr. Gorbachev to tear that wall down. Was that?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
That was
Okay.
that was Saturn and
Wow.
Saturn and there was a Saturn, like Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Saturn went through the same place. You always get, and this was the pandemic too, you always get major world activity, including a pandemic. That was Jupiter, Saturn, Pluto, when planets are close together. So in this case, we're talking about Saturn, Neptune, because that's the conjunction. But back then it was three, and there was a big change
Yeah.
in the world order for
It
sure.
was a big change. I mean, everything shut down. It was amazing. Yeah, it was amazing.
Yeah.
And what we didn't expect to happen.
Mhm.
Let's see, what else did I wanted to ask about, is there anything, we know Trump has lots of secrets. I mean, and it certainly tells a lot of lies. And recently in the court hearing, he was, of course, making fake news. So he always flags what he does as someone else doing it. And he's done it again. I'm just wondering if there's going to be anything that comes out of this that you might know of or can see in there for his ex-wife's death.
His
Anything
ex-wife's,
that we might
that.
death? Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, I
well,
know.
it's possible. It's very possible in that his Saturn cycle, which is putting a lot of pressure on him, and it's why he's in such a jam, in part because he's got more things. But
Right.
Saturn is traveling through the death house. Now you can appreciate how a planet going through there is a threat to you as well. If it's
Sure,
depending on your age
sure.
and your health and all that, that's not where you want it to
Mhm.
be. And putting pressure
Right.
depending on where you are with your health status. But anything related to that, which would be that's the topic. So yes, it could come out for
Okay.
sure.
Could come
And
out. Okay.
what I noticed with him is that he's got this other pattern. This I have to make a video about just to show people the astrology. There's this
Sure.
T-square in his chart, which I remember I called it back in 2016 the Access Hollywood T-square, because that's when the bus thing came out and it
Yeah.
got triggered, right? So that is getting triggered
Yeah.
now. The week of May 4th. So on the 5th, it enters there. That week, we'll probably see a lot of truly bad stuff, because the whole week, Mars is transiting
Yeah.
through those degrees, triggering
Uh-huh.
the whole mess. And so going into the weekend, so 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, that's probably going to be a really salacious part of the trial. If I,
Yeah.
maybe it's Michael Cohen, possibly, I don't know,
Possible.
something in there.
Or stormy. Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
stormy,
It
or
could be
both.
very, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
right.
So Ness, yes, he says that, I believe you've said before, Andre, that it will be tight, but that Biden will win, according to the charts. But these other little intricacies are making it more a tighter race. Some of those things make it a tighter race, is what he said.
Who said this?
Yep.
Sorry, are you referring to me, or are you referring to?
I think that's what you said, didn't you? Didn't you
Yes,
say
no, I did.
Biden?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, I don't want to put words in your mouth. Okay.
No,
Yeah.
right.
All right.
Yeah, that's approximately it. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. Okay. So Wiki just wonders, do you do chart on 25 in the USA the same way you would do it on a couple, on a like a married couple?
No, not exactly. You can do some of the things. Okay, like for example, the U.S. chart, when all is said and done about Trump's rise, like Trump links to the U.S. Mars. Not surprising. He stokes anger. That's what Mars is, anger and combat. Also,
Oh,
the U.S. has Mars square Neptune. Mars square Neptune, as soon as you have a Neptune square, deception and conspiracy theories can abound. He triggers that. So that's true. The problem Trump has is that his Jupiter, which is his big, expanding prosperity planet, the US Saturn is on that Jupiter. So sooner or later, if you are using your Jupiter inappropriately, the Saturn will come in and tell you you have to stop. It's Saturn and Jupiter together relate a lot to the rule of law and the application of the rule of law. So it's why he's run into so much problem in that sense. But when you're doing a couple, it's a lot more personal, and there's also a lot more room to move when you're doing examining people, because when it comes to people like Trump and some of the people around them, they're like almost like subconscious robots walking around, doing what they've learned to do over many years, and almost none of it is wholesome or good, and so then they get into trouble, right? As a result,
right? They do.
Yeah.
There was over the weekend there was a preacher who got up and was saying that, of course, this Bible that he's peddling is blasphemous, and that it says it had the Constitution in there, which is all about people, and this book is about God, and it was great. I wish more of the evangelicals will listen to it, because it's like he woke up and realized, oh, this guy may not be the one we think he is, because some of them are really deifying him. And are we going to have to go as a nation? Do you think we might have to go through a what is the word, where a detox, or where you have to go get help? It just is very frightening, Yeah.
Well, I mean, this is the thing. When you think, though, that if you say, all right, well, we're in this period where there are strong echoes to the Civil War. Imagine living here in the 1850s and 60s, how disturbed you would have been, because you would have been likely on the same side thinking, we don't want slavery. And then you'd go, wow, these people are actually going to go to war. They're ready to die for their
right.
So, it's tough, and we're in a difficult period, but periods are like, they're cycles. You go through them and you emerge on the other side. Right now, it's tense. Right. It's tense because especially the modern Republican Party, the Trumpian Republican Party, they frame it as a like do or die. But so do the Democrats. The Democrats, they're saying, we can't let this guy in, because this guy, if you let him in, he I don't know if you saw the thing with the Republican Party in Washington State, in our state of all places, right? Probably with the
I
people in the
know.
hills. And they're
Yes.
proposing that they don't want democracy. They said, we don't want to have democracy anymore. Anything mentioning democracy should be removed from the Constitution and it should just say Republican. If it's democracy, it's associated with the Democratic Party. Well, the problem is that democracy is the system. So, it's like that.
I know.
It's crazy,
Yeah.
crazy
No, I
complicated.
saw it last night. And again, it was on Rachel Maddow, but absolutely, when my husband and I were watching it going, what is wrong with these people? It's like this critical race theory thing. I teach
Mhm.
literary theory and I use critical race theory, but they're for college students and we're reading stories.
Mhm.
It's like everything is turned on its head completely and people don't understand, what's underneath the words is not what they think it is, So, yeah.
Yeah,
Kind of
yeah, no,
crazy.
and you can see why. You can see if you were of a certain type of mentality and you tilt for whatever reason to a
Right.
white power, white supremacy thing, then you feel threatened whenever you hear if critical race theory is the
Yeah.
idea, oh, well, they're going to take over my space, they're going to take my territory, which
Correct.
obviously
Mhm.
isn't true, but that's just
Right.
how a lot of people feel, and they
They
get on
do.
that bandwagon,
Yeah.
and that's what Trump exploits, by the way. That's Trump's genius is he
Oh, he
knows
does. Oh, he does.
because he
Yeah.
started it with
Yeah.
Obama. That was how it started in 2011, to put that thought in people's minds about
In their minds.
that kind of
Yeah.
divide.
They,
Yeah.
in Rachel's book, she said something about the fact that the Germans, Hitler and the Nazi Party, said that they modeled their idea about the Jews from the American idea of slavery and the inequity of black and white. And so they were using it as a rationale for separating that. And I suppose that makes sense to me, but just hearing it or reading it and seeing that that's really what they were doing. And so now we'll come that full circle again and we're back here and we're seeing the same thing happening. And but this time maybe it's also with the people coming up over the border, let's be afraid of them. They're all rapists and killers and things like
Mhm.
that. So
Yeah, that's true. That's exactly it. Yeah, that there's definitely that divide, and that's where if you go to the echoes of this would be the echoes of the planet transit. So Civil War, Uranus, Neptune back in the 1860s, the Second World War and the 1860s, Uranus in Gemini. Uranus was discovered in Gemini, and every time
yeah.
it goes through Gemini, the world goes through upheaval, changes, things moving in a new direction.
Okay.
And we're kind of there again. Uranus actually doesn't even enter Gemini for a couple of years. So it's foretelling a period of
It's the
adjustment.
buildup. Oh my Lord.
It's the
Really?
build
So
up,
we have
but
something
yes, but don't let that
big
fool you
coming
though,
up. Yeah.
because
Okay.
what can
Okay.
happen, depending on everything else, we might be feeling the worst of it already now. And then in the Gemini period, it could just as easily be the adjustment. And for other reasons, it may not be nearly as tense. Like one of the reasons is that in the sky aspects, this was something Andre Barbeau figured out too. He actually said he died in 2019, and prior to his death, he said, the early 2020s are rough, really difficult, but by the mid part of the decade, it gets much easier because you start to get sextiles. So it's very possible that we don't have to endure anything anywhere near like what happened, in the Second World War. But it could be a little tense.
Right.
Like sometimes what can happen, this is something that could get a little scary, is that the US is famous for getting into these types of periods, and then they get into a conflict with an external enemy, and then that causes people to come together again. That's a possibility, and it's possible.
Okay.
I hope not, but it's a possibility.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it seems to be that there's a tipping point. You're right. That something happens, and then finally, we need to hang together, not tear each other apart. And there's something that changes, paradigm shift that comes in. So how long does this Uranus transit last that you're talking about?
Well, I mean, if you're looking at the period where it's close to the US, Uranus, that pretty much takes up the whole decade, starting
Okay.
like between 25 and 30, but then it gets further in Gemini, it gets beyond that. And it, for example, in the Civil War in the 1860s, it was only the early degrees that applied. After that, the country moved on to the next thing. And remember that post that Civil War, we had a lot of progressive administrations back when Republicans were progressive,
Yes, we did.
excepting in the after the murder of Lincoln. That president was horrible. He was a total
Right.
racist, and he was trying to stop all the progress. But by and large, moving into the 1780s, not in a great way. I realized they left a lot undone, but the country was not being run by the Confederacy. It was being run by the
Right.
people that had their head on screwed straight, properly.
Screwed
The normal
straight.
people. Yeah.
Normal people. Yeah. So this question is probably just been answered. Hypnicity. Will we see a Nuremberg style trial? And I'm going to guess that it will finally come to that, won't it? That there will be.
Oh, well, yeah. Look, I mean, even right now, I read somewhere that they're charging Israel with that they're trying to figure out how. So this is always going on, and it's a good thing. Even if you think some of it is over the top, you got to police states, or people complain about the world we live in. I mean, if you go back to the time of the barbarians or the Romans, they didn't ask any questions. They just killed you, and there was no no recourse. So think about that. How in the modern era there are more places where you can get, some kind of relief, which is helpful.
Okay.
Yeah.
Some kind of relief. We need it. We definitely need it. I have a question. I don't even know if you've done any charts on anybody, but do you think that there is one person? No, don't know.
Well,
yeah.
I really haven't looked at that too closely. I know that it's probably not going to be. It's probably not going to be Kristi Noem.
I hope it's not Elise Stefanik either. Actually, I don't want any of them, but yeah, I get it. I totally get it. Yeah.
Yeah, he may. It's possible that he may. That the logic of putting a woman on the ticket is politically sensible, because to balance out Kamala Harris and then a woman who would speak to women. The problem is that they've got an indefensible position on abortion. So then it doesn't matter who you put there. Even a Nikki Haley, who is pretty sensible, has a lot of trouble with that question because he's trying to have it both ways. So it's very hard to argue the point, right? So
absolutely. I wouldn't want to have to straddle that fence myself. So I totally get it. No. In the trial, it's come out that they paid hush money to a doorman because he seemed to think that Trump had a secret child. And can you tell from his chart how many children he may have had? Do you think he has a secret child?
Well, the thing is, all I have to do to spot that possibility, because the astrology gives you possibilities, right? So when you see that he has
Hi, Linda. Thank you.
He has his moon in the children's house, and the moon in his chart, first of all, it's overloaded because it spends a lot of its progressed cycles out of bounds. So it's extra strong, and it rules the 12th. So the idea of hidden secrets, having, illicit affairs, illicit children. Yes, it's definitely there. No question. Yeah.
So it's possible. It is possible.
No, it's probable. It's probable.
It's probable.
Not possible. Probable.
Not possible.
Very probable. VP. Very probable.
Yeah, and that might be one of those things that we find out later on, it may come up next week, as you say, because next week's going to be a bear for him in that courtroom. So it'd be wonderful if somebody just ended up bringing somebody in. See, this is your Linda G is here. Thanks, Linda, for being here. And thank you for the donation. That's very nice of you. So it is probable. Okay. I agree. I always have thought that. I think he has another, maybe even more than one. But at least one. Let's see how about mental health? Is that anywhere in there, Andre? In his health The
Oh, no,
for
yeah, for
him, for
sure.
Trump.
No, for sure, for
Oh,
sure.
okay.
That's
Okay.
part of his, it's there, and that's one that, um, the longer he goes into 25 and 26, it's worse because when you're looking at mental health, the whole chart applies. But if you're looking in the minutia, you'd say Mercury. That's where Saturn and
Mhm.
Neptune are going to conjoin, or rather to square. Pardon me, to square. And the
Mhm.
Mercury in his chart is in the 12th, so it's a health house anyway. So that is probably, like, in a way,
Wow.
it's a marker. I see this a lot in astrology. When you see a transit moving in, people have this idea that it's only when it catches the planet, but it often signals before it gets there that there's a problem that gets worse and worse. And to me, a Saturn Mercury square Neptune too, but Saturn first. That's classic of, for instance, his dementia. You can tell that he's really downtrending in his
Yeah.
mind. He forgets
Yeah,
words.
yeah,
He slurs his words. There's something going on there that is
yeah,
not healthy. Yeah.
yeah. And I remember watching him, he dances and all that stuff and tips over because he kind of is he just reminds me of somebody that has been diagnosed with Lewy body dementia. So it's not just his brain, but also it shows itself in his body.
The
And
whole
I'm
thing.
sure
Yeah.
that I just feel really bad for the people in the courtroom because I can't imagine they keep it cold to keep them awake, but also maybe to stave off some of the smell because it's really bad. Oh my
Yeah, I know it's bad when, I mean, it must be really, well, he's kind of shameless, but it must be humiliating because he hates people
Yeah,
talking about it. But I've heard
I know. Yeah.
Kissinger, the ex-congressperson, I've heard different people who are around them who say, yeah, no, it's pretty bad, but uh, thank
And
God
it
all the,
was even better in The Apprentice is what I heard as well. But
right.
he when apparently, and I heard this from somebody that was talking in the courtroom. They said his lawyers have to get up and move away from him,
Well, when it
fan the
rains, it
flames.
pours.
I don't want to make fun of it. I don't want to make fun of anybody that's sick. Honestly, I'm not trying to do that. But give me a break. Um,
Yeah, well, I
yeah,
mean, when you
it's
live by the sword, you die by the sword. He spent his whole life
very true.
diminishing people, insulting people, so if you dish it out, you have to be able to take it. It's that simple. So,
You have to be able to dish it in. Yeah, yeah.
I don't have much
Um,
pity for the guy because I think he's really dangerous. So,
well, he is. I mean, it's really difficult for us who are empaths. I remember when he got off the plane, they were in Oklahoma and TikTok people had taken all the seats. So he went to this was during and it was during COVID. And so he goes to this, to talk at this place in Oklahoma, and there's like 50 people there, or maybe 100 people there. And it should have been thousands of people. And I remember him getting off the plane and walking with his head down, towards the White House. And
mm,
as an empath, I felt really bad for him. I did. It just was like for me to see somebody like that was my first reaction. And then I thought to myself, well, he wouldn't feel bad for me. It's
mhm.
very hard to be in that position when you're spiritually working towards being kinder and more loving. So yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's hard,
Anyway.
but there are people that emerge in history that they accomplish things through destruction so that they're part of a pattern where something is evolving into something else. But even if you say that, how do you ever back a Hitler or a Trump or a
I
Bolsonaro?
know.
These are people that are not good people. I'm sorry. They're just, he always says how he always calls other people bad or sick. He's the one that's bad and sick, both, together. It's
Everything he
very,
says is about him.
it's
Yeah. Yeah.
exactly, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And it's very
Yeah.
destructive, very divisive. It's just ugly, bad, bad, bad. So,
Yes, it is. It is
no,
bad. Yeah.
we can't have that.
And what I really, I was watching some of the correspondence dinner. I love watching those. Of course, he didn't have them when he was president because he didn't want anybody talking about himself. And so if you can't laugh about yourself in any way possible,
Mm.
then you really are, you have a poor view of everything. I think there isn't anybody that he He's even Bill Barr came out for whatever reason and said, "Yeah, I'm going to support him," and then he didn't even appreciate that. So yeah, he is anyway.
Yeah, no, I know. That's the thing that when you think of Bill Barr and a number of other of these guys who, well, Mitch McConnell. I mean, Mitch McConnell was saying how he should be brought to account, and then he supports him again. So it's very partisan. But I mean, I don't know what to say. It damages you.
Yep.
I always say to people, don't get near this guy. Don't get near this guy because he will take you down. You notice how the damage that he inflicts on everyone around him. You know, every person that he gets near ends up, either disbarred, jailed, charged, and even politically, it's not a good thing. It's like an oil spill that'll stick to you.
Yep. Are you aware of the 2025 plan or agenda or the book that that the Republicans put together? You are.
I am.
I don't know if that, that's very bothersome to me because of the things that it's saying. And of course, he's saying he's going to dismantle the government. I'm not too worried because I don't believe he'll get in, but I am a little concerned about the party and how they will go through. And Well,
the thing with that is that the reason as I see it, that they've continued with this insanity is they're losing fairly close elections, but they're losing them repeatedly in all kinds of places where they should be winning. That should really be the message. The only answer to what you're saying is when they get tired of losing enough that they know it's not a good message, and so then they'll switch because people will vote them out. And and of course a Democrat will say, yeah, but they're also trying to control the voting. Yeah, you can try all kinds of things, but if you tell me that there are 100 Republican lawyers, I can bet you there are 100 Democratic lawyers nearby. I mean, it's not an easy thing to do. Much easier to win clean than to try to cheat, which is what they're trying to do. So that's where I'm hopeful, even though it's by no means smooth. Yeah,
I understand. So I did read AOC is going to bring impeachment inquiry into Clarence Thomas. I heard this yesterday. It would be interesting to see how that goes. Of course, they don't have the majority in the Congress, so it probably won't go anywhere. But have you seen anything? Have you ever done his chart?
Thomas's I have. Chart? Clarence Thomas is the type of a story. He's early cancer, and so once you're because the early cancer, that doesn't mean if someone is listening to me and you're early cancer, don't start saying, "Oh, I'm like Clarence Thomas," and I'm gonna. No, it doesn't work like that.
No.
The way it works.
This is his chart, not yours. Yeah.
Clarence Thomas is pretty clearly another one of these corrupt individuals who, him and his wife, that whole thing with the election. This is just corrupt. You should never do stuff like that, especially as a judge. So then, Saturn entering Aries in 25 and 26 is not good for him because that's he's early in the cycle. So Saturn will find him. So then alone on health too, he's already had some health problems. Saturn is not the planet you want visiting you when your health is ailing. So he's already had events. And then there is the reputation and the pattern of your life. That's also not helpful. So I would not be surprised to see whether it's impeachment inquiries or worse or less, but yes, it's not good for Clarence Thomas.
Yeah.
Yes.
No.
The bottom line.
I got that. I remember one of the other gals, Helen from Irish Granny. We talked doing a thing on SCOTUS, and she had him last time. And the things she told me about his upbringing and how he vacillates as being sort of and I'm using a 70s word, and it's not my opinion, but the word token. He's like a token Black, where you would have a bunch of white guys and you'd say, well, I love all African-American people. See, this is my friend, if you understand what I'm saying. Whereas nowadays that wouldn't go over really well. But Clarence vacillates between the two sides, and he really doesn't care anything about the Constitution, is what I heard. So he just doesn't bother him what he's doing.
No, so he's definitely he's in that camp where
Yeah.
he's trying to be. I mean, I don't know about vacillating. I don't know that he does anything for his own race or anything like that. It's,
Right.
if
Right.
anything,
No, I don't. Yeah. Yep.
he's a little bit
I
like
agree.
OJ, trying to be the opposite
Yeah.
race and milking it for everything,
Uh-huh.
and
Mhm.
just not, not even. I mean, as a judge, you think the first thing would be honest and follow the law. I heard
Mhm.
Andrew Wiseman point out that Alito just says things that he says they're just not true. They're disingenuous. They're the kind of thing you expect from a low rent lawyer, not from a Supreme
Right.
Court judge. You have to be
Right.
honest. And I mean, what are they cooking up in there? Him and his wife, Ginny, and what are they doing? This is crazy. Ginny sounds
Yeah.
like she's a. I heard that she got stuck in a cult at one point. I'm not surprised because she was texting things like, "We're going to put Biden on the barge," and like, really, seriously, put him off, Guantanamo Bay,
Yeah.
please,
Right.
and
Right.
he,
Yeah.
instead of saying,
That's
my wife
threatening. That's
shouldn't have been saying
threatening.
that, he's in there. Yeah. So, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yep. Unbelievable. And anybody else, if it was one of the ladies that's there, that's one of the liberal ladies, that it would be something, they'd be complaining about it and trying to do something about it. So, Jen, the GOP convention is in Wisconsin due to finances. Officials are concerned about if it's going to even happen. Will the convention actually happen? I think the convention's going to happen. I don't think that cannot happen. But there's
I
a
would
lot
say
of
yes.
conventions. Yeah. Okay.
It'll
Remember, they
happen.
were saying, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, like
Go ahead.
there's no, they'll always figure out how to do it. It's just that more to the point is that this state they're in is another marker that is weakening them because they've got a compromised candidate, they've got less money, most because he's taking a lot of it to pay for his
Right.
lawyers, all that stuff. So
Yes,
it's
he
not a
is.
good plan. What they're
Mhm.
in, this is where
Yeah.
encourage yourself that basically at best, yes, they're causing division in the country, but they themselves are very divided. They're all over the map
Yeah.
with
Yes.
people
That's true.
disagreeing. This is a good thing for the Democratic Party.
Mhm.
That is, but for the most part, except for the Gaza issue and a couple of other things, it's a more united party. So it's preferred.
It is a more united party. Absolutely. Yeah. They're even uniting to keep, they said today that they agreed that they would vote to keep Mike Johnson on if he gets, and that's pretty big for the Democratic Party to do that.
Yeah,
so,
no, it's a smart thing though, because it actually surprised me that Jeffries, maybe he did, I don't know, but I would have approached Johnson and said, look, if you do this, because this is for the world here, we need to do this now. Let's get it done. Right. We'll keep you. Yeah. Because by the way, once you get to the election, you're in new territory anyway. You either win the House or you lose it, but you need to make sure you stay on. Yeah. And that's the correct thing to do. Yeah. I praise them for that. Yeah.
Some of them were saying that maybe he was told, look, we have this on you for January 6th because he did some stuff behind the scenes. And if you vote for this, then, we won't bring this up. We won't do anything. But at the same time, they said he had a come to Jesus moment, I guess. So for whatever reason, we may or may not.
This I've said how Linda really got this because I remember when he was first elected, and Linda was saying to me, she asked, well, what do you think about this guy? And she said, I keep getting that he's middle of the road. Well, he ended up being middle of the road, even though he's an extremist. He was part of that whole January 6th. He ended up doing a lot of middle of the road things. This is like really middle of the road. He's basically doing something for the country. Yeah. So it's turned out that way. And you could sort of see it in his chart because he didn't have, when I was looking, I thought, no, this is not like McCarthy's. McCarthy's, you could see he was going to crash and burn. He had a big Saturn in 2023. Okay. I remember saying, this guy not going to survive. But Johnson looked much harder to pin down when I was looking at it. I don't know his birth time, though, which I do with McCarthy's. But even without a birth time.
Oh, that's true. That's hard. Yeah.
Yeah. So it turned out, just like Linda said, she really got that one right. Yeah.
Oh, Linda's always spot on, honestly. She's amazing. She is. She's amazing. Wow. Well, Jen, as far as the violence and so forth happening, if there was the GOP convention, I would just say make sure that you're aware of what's going on at the time. But if this Saturn uh, is and the Uranus, I'm not as astute on astrology, so I may be wrong here, but if this is building up to be much like it was during World War II or the Civil War, then we might have those instances, won't we, Andre? That
Yeah,
there might
but
be violence at these things.
the Second World War, though, and the Civil War, I'm talking about a broader pattern. I
Okay,
don't know
broader
that.
brush.
In other words, the period we're in is dicey. There's a war in Ukraine. There's disagreement, but I don't know that I would pin big violence on the U.S. Division. Yes, but I wouldn't say
Okay,
like at the convention. Well, by the way, we're seeing some already. That's happening in the campuses
we
with
are.
the young
We are.
people.
Uh-huh.
There's a
Yeah.
possibility of some of that, but I no, I'm not saying that you're going to see some big
Yeah.
conflagration break out. No, no. I mean, no.
Right. Right.
So
I'm sensing these young people are their grandparents' kids, if you know what I mean. They're, the hippies with their grandparents, and and I'm actually, I said to my husband, I understand that some of the things they're doing, they shouldn't be doing, like breaking into buildings and smashing
no,
things and things like
no.
that. But they're standing up for things. They're standing up for their beliefs. And I don't find that to be a wrong thing to do. I just don't,
No, it
as long
isn't.
as
It
they're
isn't. It's just that
smart about
you
it.
do have to. You have to be
Yeah.
completely fair about both things. So it's the same like back
Yeah,
in
you do.
2020, the Democratic Party was badly hurt with the defund the police thing. A lot of votes were lost
Mhm.
there and made the election closer than it needed to be. So you can protest, but no, you cannot break into buildings. If you do, then you're going to be charged. Sorry, there are no exceptions to that.
Yep.
Otherwise, it's a free for all,
Yep.
and anything goes.
That's
So
right.
yeah,
Yeah. No, absolutely. It's like January 6th, where some members of SCOTUS said, "Well, I'm not sure it was an insurrection. I'm not." Come on, what would you call it? It was not a tea party either. So,
yeah,
not always, Linda. Linda says not always. Oh, she said about being right about something. I think that's what she means. Oh, you're all right,
yeah.
Linda G. You're wonderful. Anyway, well, Andre, I thank you for answering all these
That's a pleasure.
burning
Yeah.
questions I had for you today. I hope that helps other people. But one of the things, if you came in later, you might want to understand is that Andre says that according to the chart, Trump's chart, and according to the chart he did, next week's going to be very busy with things becoming more and more uncovered, perhaps during the trial. And
Yeah, a week
so if
from
you're not watching it now, yeah, if you're not
yeah.
watching it
So
now,
around a
yeah.
week from today, that's when the
Mhm.
Mars cycle gets in his face. And I noticed that in the past when I've tracked that one, he never likes it. He's always squirming and things are coming out and he's angry and so forth. Or worse,
Right.
this is the thing. With cycles, they they're like layers, right? It's one thing to be angry, and then it's
Mhm.
another that something happens to you, or something really difficult, and so forth. It's either
Yeah.
at least one or more of those things at the same time. So yeah.
Right.
Mhm,
Yeah.
mhm.
No, and it's fascinating. So thank you so much for being here with me today, and
Pleasure.
thank you to everybody in the chat. I usually talk more to my chat, but no, not today. Thank you for being patient with me. Thank you, Linda, and everybody that came in. Thank you for your donation, dear. And everybody, hang in there. Hang in there. Mars
Yeah,
went into Aries today, Celtic Seer says. All right. So
yeah.
everybody's thanking you, Andre.
It's just entering, but it needs to reach about 5 degrees before it really impacts Trump. And between 5 and 10 degrees, that's the zone where he's
Ah,
very
okay.
unhappy. Yeah.
I mean, they said that they felt that this was almost as bad as going to jail. This
Yes.
making him sit down, be quiet, and listen, and sit still, and all that stuff. So yeah,
Mhm.
I agree. It's almost, if this is the only one we're going to get, then let's enjoy this trial as much as we can. If there isn't
Mhm.
anything before the election. So, thanks, Andre. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you
It's a
later.
pleasure.
Have a wonderful day.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.